So, give me some background. What is Raven Ridge?
Okay. Raven Ridge Wildlife Center, we are a nonprofit wildlife center here in Lancaster County. We are the only center here in Lancaster County. There are only 31 licensed wildlife rehabilitators. This all started with the Gulf oil spill. Watching for the 29 days of the amounts of oil that spilled into the Gulf was just heart-wrenching. So I wanted to do something to seeing these animals covered in oil, and there was like nothing that I could do here. So I got a hold of Horizon to get on their waiting list to come down. Got permission from the employer to take a week or two off to go down and help. My family supported me. I said I could leave at any time. And they're like, go, just go do this. So I waited and waited, and I tried to get supplies together to send down, monetary donations. Got a hold of FedEx. If I get a bunch of supplies, will you ship them down there? They're like, absolutely.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, this is great. So I think I got $25 in donations. That was it. I sent that down to them. I had such a minimal amount of supplies that I couldn't even have enough to ship.
Yeah.
So I donated them to an animal rescue here in Lancaster County. Because Raven Ridge wasn't Raven Ridge yet.
Yeah.
I finally got a call from Horizon saying that I was not permitted to come down to help, that you had to be a licensed wildlife rehabilitator to do so. And I was so frustrated because I'm like, I'm willing to drop everything to come help these animals. Like, I cried every day that oil spilled. And I was like, a what? A wildlife rehabilitator, what is that? So I started doing my research. And in the time I was doing my research to find out what a rehabber was, were there any in the area, how this worked. My husband and I were coming home from dinner on a back road here in Lancaster, and I actually saw a snow goose hit by a car, and they kept going, and it was a busy back road. So I pulled the car over, ran out in the middle of the road, grabbed this goose, standing on the other side of the road with this bleeding animal. And my husband's like, what are we going to do with it? And I said, I don't know, but there's got to be somebody. We'll find somebody. So 3 days it took me to do all this research to find a rehabilitator to take this animal. It was the most horrifying 3 days of my entire life. This animal was bleeding. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to feed it. I knew it was illegal to have it, and you hear the horror stories of the Game Commission, and I didn't want to be in trouble for trying to help this animal. So I found Red Creek Wildlife Center, which is an hour and a half north of here. We drove this goose an hour and a half north because I was going to stop at nothing to get this animal the help it needed. I met Peggy Hentz, who is the founder and rehabilitator at Red Creek, and I was just amazed. Like, this is a rehabilitator. This is what I was looking for. And at that time, talking to Peggy, she was just getting classes together to do wildlife rehabilitation. And I was hysterical. I was like, this is perfect. Everything's happening for a reason.
What year was this?
This was about 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I started volunteering up there. I made the drive every weekend. Sometimes if there were animals down here, I would transport them up there. I was taking the classes. I was following her everywhere. But she's just an amazing woman and taught me everything I know. So then when we started with a center needs to be down here, there is no one. She helped me. She helped me get the center off the ground and what to specialize in. Going to classes, going to conferences, out-of-state conferences. We go to a lot of out-of-state conferences. There's a lot of rules and regulations with wildlife. So with her, I volunteered for at least a year and a half. Then I moved up to sub-permittee, which is like you have more responsibilities,
Okay.
more educational background with working with wildlife. You're able to care for the animals here at your home, but she's still the person that I check in with.
Does she take a lot of Lancaster? Did she take a lot of Lancaster County
Yeah.
animals at the time?
Yeah.
Where'd your love for animals come from?
I always had it.
Yeah?
Yep, I
Pets
always had
when
it.
you were growing up?
Pets, everything. Wild bunnies, guinea pigs, dogs, cats, was always with the wildlife too. I would go out and get the bagworms out of the tree and, make little houses for them.
Okay.
My mom has an awesome story about the maggots. I found some maggots and put them in the milk crates. Remember the milk? My mom freaked out, but I was like, no, these are my babies, We had a ceramic frog in the front yard when I was little, so I'd sit out and talk to the ceramic frog for hours on end. So I always had a love for animals. And when I, graduated high school, it was like you're either going to go to veterinary school or nothing. Like they don't have the opportunities like they do now with wildlife and the biology majors and the internships and being able to go out. We have several volunteers right now that are on internships out of state, Australia, Colorado, Montana, that they're doing those internships.
So you changed careers and went into this full time? Is that how it worked?
I did. I used to work for a local hospital as a biller.
Okay.
And I would take the babies with me that needed fed at lunchtime in the parking garage, and I would sit out there and feed these babies. And it just got to the point where it was colliding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually lost my job.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I lost my job. But there's such a need for this, and this was such a love. It's excruciating. It really is. It's 24/7. It's 365 days a year. There's no schedule. You don't know what's going to be coming in. You don't know what's going to need your help. But once it's in your system, it's in your system.
Sounds
This
like you
love and dedication.
Sounds like you love all sorts of animals, but do you have a favorite animal?
The skunks.
Skunks?
I love the skunks.
Yeah. Are you one of the people that likes the skunk smell, or?
It doesn't bother me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the skunk smell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. But they're such a misunderstood animal,
Okay.
and everybody's afraid of them. You see a skunk, you run. But we actually do have an education skunk, Tapioca,
Okay.
who someone purchased her from an exotic dealer and thought it was a great idea to have as a pet. They don't make a good pet.
No.
No.
Why not?
They're nocturnal for one.
Okay.
So you're trying to sleep and they're tearing up your house. So this woman that purchased this skunk actually called me and said, I can't do this anymore. I have to sleep. She destroyed their carpet, their drywall, got into their refrigerator, got everything out of the refrigerator. So they don't see very well, but they rely on their sense of smell and sense of hearing, which is very, very good. So we wondered what was in the refrigerator.
Okay.
Yeah, so she would tear everything out. But they are very strong. Like they can dig, and that's what they do.
What kind of animals do you get coming into the sanctuary?
I'm licensed through the Pennsylvania Game Commission, and we are primarily mammals, which are your skunk or your bunnies, your squirrels. We do get mink, that sort of thing. Mammals. But we are one of 13 that are licensed to take rabies vector species, which are your bats, your skunks, your groundhogs, your foxes, coyotes, raccoons, which is, different caging. There's different liabilities with that, different regulations, and it's a whole other permitting permitting process to do that. But like the bats are in big trouble. So that was really important for me to become, licensed to take in rabies vector species like the bats and get them the help that they need and get them back out in the environment.
Like, that's funny you said that. Like, I remember growing up in the city and we'd see bats all over the place, but you don't see them.
They're losing habitat.
Okay.
A lot of, they are more like the behind your shutters, in the barns and that sort of thing. So they're losing their habitat. Barns are being torn down. Pesticides, and that's why we're trying to educate. Farmers are spraying for everything, every type of bug. These bats can eat like over 1,000 insects. One bat can eat over 1,000 insects in 1 hour. But they're sprayed. Then the bats eat the bugs that are sprayed by the pesticides. They get sick, they die. White nose syndrome is a big thing. It's actually a fungus that's starting to overtake like the caves and that. And like it's on their face. And this fungus actually, when the bats are trying to hibernate, wakes them up. And when they awake, they have such a high, fast metabolism that they need to go look for bugs. There's no bugs in the winter. Okay. And they end up dying. There was a building in downtown Lancaster that is actually being they're redoing it as like a conference center, and the renovations to this building have now woken up a colony because the building's been empty for 40 some years, which is perfect. But people panic, kill the bat, get the bat out of here. And we worked with them, explaining to them, you've just uprooted a colony. You cannot kill them. They are protected, but we get them in touch with the right people to do an exclusion, which they put in like one-way doors that the bats can get out, but they can't get back in.
Oh, gotcha.
But it has to be at a certain time of year, like when the pups aren't born, you can't do anything. But it's heavily regulated with the bats. But
what's the wildest or weirdest story you've had, or strangest creature someone's dropped off for you?
Oh, wow. We had a muskrat when I first started, my first year. And there was like high floodings in Lebanon. This was like 3 years ago. And he said he had a muskrat. A baby muskrat. He jumped in to save the baby because it got separated from the mom and the other baby. And I'm like, okay. So he brought it in, and I'm like, what is this thing? I've never seen one. And it was a muskrat.
Okay.
So we raised it here and reached out to all the rehabilitators. What do you feed this thing? Formula, and, because the formulas in that we get for these animals are specific to that animal. So, we work all together, all of us rehabbers. And, they got me through on how to care for this animal, because I'm used to squirrels and bunnies, and here's a muskrat. Yeah. But we did raise them, and we did release them back into the river. Yeah.
Do you ever run into any kind of like invasive species that show up? I lived in Maine for a while, and they had a big concern over hedgehogs. People were getting them as pets, and then not being able to deal with them, so they let them go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you have anything like that?
We're actually going through a situation right now. We got a call about an albino southern flying squirrel. So I'm like, okay, because there's been a lot of white animals lately. So I'm like, okay. I said, can you send me a picture of it? But I had sent a subcommittee, actually, who's under me. It was Southern Lancaster County, to go get this animal, because they're like, well, we have it in a box, but knowing it's going to get out of this box.
Yeah.
They are nocturnal, and it's going to, So she was on her way down already. So she sent me the picture, and I looked at it on the phone, and I'm like, this is not a southern flying squirrel. This is a sugar glider, which are illegal in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so are hedgehogs. So she got the animal. and she explained to them that this is a sugar glider that either got out or somebody released into the environment. With sugar gliders, they are illegal. They need to go to, usually if the Game Commission's involved with that, they go to a rehabilitation center that has a menagerie permit to take them. Rehabbers, the new rehabbers now are not permitted to have menagerie permits.
Okay.
It's either or. So we worked with the Game Commission. I tried something different and it worked. I didn't want this animal because a sugar glider is a very social animal. They're like a colony animal. They want to be with you type of thing. But because it's illegal, I didn't want this animal sitting in a cage for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
So I worked with my Game Commission officer and his boss, and we worked with, we reached out to a sugar glider person in Connecticut. So back and forth, she overnighted us a care package of different foods that a sugar glider is going to need, because they're totally different than our squirrels. You know, these guys eat meat. You know, they're a totally different entity of their own. You know, there's permits that need to be taken care of to get an animal out of state into another state. So we got a hold of the Connecticut veterinarian, biologist, their equivalent to Game Commission. This was all going on to get this animal out of state. Getting ready to transport, but we needed a health certificate. So the veterinarian that we work with agreed to do, you know, a clean bill of health that this animal has. Connecticut has now recognized it, and it's actually being transported out of state on Sunday.
Oh, wow. So this is recent.
Yep. This Sunday. So we're meeting halfway to get this animal. You know, we're just, it's an animal and it deserves a life.
How many animals do you have here?
Currently, we've done a lot of releases right now. So we have about 30 animals right now. And plus we also have our education animals that are here year-round.
And how do you use the education animals?
We do programs, like for the Lancaster County Conservancy had us in for their picnic. So we'll take our animals and go do their picnic. We have different children's camps this summer that, you know, they're doing something different, or they're doing wild animals, so we'll bring our animals in. Our facility, first of all, is so small that we can't have, like, it's not set up for the public. But our facility also, because of me being licensed through the Game Commission, our facility is not open to the public. That's another regulation. But it's sick animals, they're scared, they're frightened, and we need quiet for these animals in order to heal. The more stress, it just prolongs whatever is going on with them, you know, their injuries or their illness. So it's just the volunteers out there and myself, and it's a quiet area for them.
Now, you said you're at a maximum for space. Are you hoping to expand?
Well, it's finances.
Okay.
We have no corporate sponsors. We get no state, federal, local aid at all. I am licensed through the Game Commission, but we're not paid through the Game Commission. So it's all volunteers. Nobody gets paid. The only way that we're able to do this is donations from the public. And we are a public service. We are there for the public. Somebody finds an animal, you know, we're usually like the 20th phone call.
Okay.
They call their vet. Well, the vet can't take wildlife. They'll call the SPCA. They'll call the Humane League. I mean, they just call everybody. They don't get called back. So by the time they reach us, they're frustrated. They're upset. This animal needs help. Bring it in.
Okay.
You know, but we're covering over 7 counties.
Oh, wow.
Even though there's 31 rehabilitators in the state, not everybody takes everything. A lot of them specialize. We do have 2 rehabbers over in York, for example, One rehabber takes only raptors. The other rehabber only takes herons, egrets, and bitterns. That's it. But as far as mammals and rabies vector species, we're covering over 7 counties. So with it being as small as facility as we have, we run out of room so quickly. You get the baby squirrels in, 4 and 5 at a time. If the nest is blown out or the mother's killed, you could have 3 or 4 people show up with 5 squirrels per person. Right there is almost a limit. Like, there's only so much room that we have. Some of these animals need fed every hour, every 2 hours, round the clock. And that's just those. That's not including all the other animals that you have to take care of. So the donations that we do get go to veterinary bills, food. We don't always know what's coming in. We got last year 6 groundhogs, babies. They were on formula, but when they started eating food, they were eating us out of house and home. We were going through over $100 a day in food. But we don't have the room to store, 50 heads of lettuce.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's other foods that animals need too. So, we do get the gift cards in that, and depending on what animal comes in, who needs what at that time. Like I said, we're so limited on space.
Where are your donations coming from?
From the finders.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
From the finders. We do have some schools and charities that will do fundraisers for us. We're trying to work on fundraisers, but again, and I'm wearing so many hats as rehabber, fundraiser, trying to make phone calls to set up things. It's just, so I rely on my volunteers heavily to help me with the animals while I'm on the phone, or getting animals in, or triaging. If we get a call from park rangers, game commission, they need our help, we have to stop what we're doing and we'll go help them.
Yeah.
They have other things going on.
Are you looking for more volunteers?
We're always looking for more volunteers. We're very selective because this is very different. You need to be at least 18 of age or older. It is a liability. These are not animals that want to be touched, looked at, held. These are scared, frightened. They're wild animals. So I think sometimes people come in and think that they're going to play with the raccoons all day, and that's not the case. It's dirty work. It's washing bowls and doing laundry and, cleaning out duck pens, and it's very dirty. It's very intensive. Or if we get a call, you drop what you're doing and we got to go get this animal, depending on what the situation is. But we're so limited that we can't run to Gettysburg to get the raccoon. We'll talk you through on how to do it, to bring the animal in. Sometimes the animal doesn't even need to come in. So, we train our volunteers to answer the phone, with the bunnies. Well, they don't need to come in. It's okay. Cat attacks. Feral cats are a big problem.
Okay.
So we get a lot of animals in that, feral cats attack the bats, the bunnies, the squirrels. We need to be here. Those animals need to get on antibiotics, which is, again, where the donations go. Top food for these animals, veterinary care, medications, supplies, and that sort of thing. So it's not in our budget right now to build onto the center. It's just this very small barn, and we're just trying to do what we can do with what we have.
Sounds like you got your hands full.
We do.